Hello, everyone. I'm Jody Toro with SC Media, and I am so pleased to introduce Jody Koch, Vice President of Cybersecurity at Target, who has been wonderful enough to offer some time to speak about her own journey with the retailer powerhouse. Jody has been with Target for more than 15 years, tested perhaps most in 2020, when the pandemic and online shopping contributed to a whopping $15 billion increase in sales, all while huge portions of the workforce were remote. Important to note also, Jody is one of the 2021 SC Women in IT Security honorees. So before we even kick it off, Jody, I want to say congratulations.
Well, thank you, Jill. Much appreciated.
Yeah, and we do appreciate the time. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. Something that I know I found interesting and I wanted to start off with, and we will return to the whole discussion of the pandemic, which I'm sure was interesting for you, but something that I was told was that the security team has secured 17 patents to date, which to me I found fascinating. When I think of Target, I think of this as a retailer, not necessarily a tech company where you often see the patents emerge. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I will tell you, well, one, I'm crazy proud of the team. My job really becomes hiring really smart people, creating that environment that makes them want to stay at Target and then just getting out of their way. But, you have to be really intentional about getting out of their way so that they have that time to innovate. And I think we do a couple of things that are unique. We have what we call 50 days of learning. So we're basically asking every tech team member to take one day a week to just step out of their day job and focus on building their skill set and working on things they don't typically work on. So we see a lot of unique things come from that. We also do demo days once a quarter. So it's like a science fair where all of our tech team members get to show off their cool work to one another. And that just has that snowball effect of sparking further innovation. And then within my team, we focus a lot on what we call skunk works projects. And so this is where the team members pick those really crazy problems that don't seem to have a solution. And then anybody across the team can sign up to work on those. So all of a sudden you find yourself with these new cross-functional teams of people that typically don't work together. They have different backgrounds, and new and interesting solutions just come to light when you bring those different groups together. So the skunk works projects have really driven a lot of those patents. Don't get me wrong, a ton of those never see the light of day, but a lot of them end up being our most innovative projects, not just for patents, but the team's super passionate about giving back to the community, not just on the Intel side, but the tech side. So we'll actually take a lot of these solutions and then open source them so we can share them with our peers. We have one coming that I'm really excited about to help the industry with detecting digital skimming. So we'll roll that one out soon as well. But, my part's easy. Like I said, it's about getting out of the way of these really smart people on my team.
So it's not even necessarily that it's, internally Target is a problem. Target needs to solve a problem for its own infrastructure. It's a matter of kind of just pooling ideas and concepts, seeing what can bubble up to the surface and potentially pushing it even outward. Is that fair?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For us, that's actually a big focus for us, is how do we make the industry stronger? It's a team sport in cyber. And so that's really the perspective we take for a lot of the skunk works projects, actually.
It's interesting because, like I mentioned, I think people, would view Target as a retailer and wouldn't view this as a technology company, although if you see the innovation that happens very often online and so forth, I think that's actually not true. But what kind of responsibility do you feel companies do hold in terms of innovation, even when they are not at the core a company that is producing technology? What is the role?
I'll take the slice of retail. I think it's critical for survival. It's how we've differentiated ourselves at Target. I mean, when you think of things like drive up or order pickup, I mean, you and I were talking before we started, we're both working moms. That has been a saving grace when my kids are in the car, not, hungry and ready for the next activity or whatever it is, to quickly put my order in and be able to drive up and get it ran out to my car is huge in everyday life, and even more impactful during the pandemic. And so I think in order to differentiate yourself in the services you provide, you have to be a tech company under the hood within retail.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it's a nice transition actually to the pandemic. I saw one of your colleagues, I think it might have been your chief product officer, but I'm not positive, speaking during RSA, and spoke about the very quick transition that needed to happen because of that rapid growth in revenue and because of the rapid onslaught of online shopping that came with it and so forth. What was 2020 into 2021 like for a company like Target that really a lot of consumers turned to during this situation?
You know, it's interesting because both tech and security went through a transformation, a significant transformation over the years leading up to the pandemic. So we were really well positioned to handle the volume in shopping that switched to online. I think what we did really well was laser focus on prioritization. Simple examples were getting laser focused with our supplier partners on SKUs. Toilet paper was a hot commodity, right?
Oh yeah.
And so why would we produce 20 different kinds? Why aren't we producing 2 and getting those out faster to the guests? So it was those simple examples of lasered prioritization, but that was across the board is, what are the top 3 things we need to focus on this quarter for our guests right now? How do we make this the safest and easiest place for them to shop during the pandemic to find what they need right now? And having such a clear North Star like that made it really easy for us to keep putting the guest just at the center of all of those prioritization decisions we made. But from a scale perspective, we were ready for it. From a security perspective, we were ready for it. So we didn't have to make significant strategy changes. It was just laser focused prioritization over and over again.
And you gave a good example of, because I think what happens and what happened for many companies during the pandemic is there was this rush for digital transformation, for digital enablement. And I think there were many companies across all verticals that did that to support customer needs. And then now we're finding themselves chasing the security aspect, or found themselves, challenged by certain security issues that emerged because they went so fast. So for Target, how did the two sides from the get-go work cohesively as you did try to enable these sorts of scenarios for the customer?
Yeah, I would probably point to what we call our product security capability and how we stayed really integrated with all the product teams. A lot of organizations point to AppSec or DevSecOps, whatever term you want to use. But we were very thoughtful about integrating security across the product teams as we transformed and we grew. A couple things I'd point to that were really successful. One would be our Security Ninja program. A lot of organizations have something similar, Security Champion program, whatever name you want to give it. We intentionally took a different approach than a lot of organizations do with their Security Champion programs, where instead of everybody being a security champion, we made it like an exclusive club, because we really wanted to invest in scaling our security capabilities across tech. And the only way we felt we could do that successfully was bringing in, a small group of people that are very passionate about security and could bring that passion back to their product teams. And so we trained them up. We gave them the skills they needed, but we needed them to have to really be an extension of the security team. And then we made it easy for them to do their job. For example, we rolled out something called product intelligence, where the security ninjas and the product teams could look at this dashboard and they would get a security score for their product to let them know how healthy their product was from a security perspective. But more importantly, right underneath the score, it would tell them the tasks they needed to do in order to increase the health of their security product. And right there, they could request or make those changes from the dashboard. So it was all about scaling without adding a huge headcount resources to it, but scaling within the product teams and then making it really, really easy. and making security really easy for them. So those are probably two easy examples to point to.
Yeah, and like closing out the pandemic discussion, like were there any, I won't even call them lesson learned, but like best practices that emerged during all of this, where you and your team are like, you know what, this is the way to do it moving forward, or maybe it tweaked a little bit in terms of the approach that will be a permanent process moving forward? Like, were there those silver linings amid all of these situations?
Yeah, like I said before, I think we were already well integrated and well positioned, pandemic or not, between security and the rest of tech and even the business. And so I think some of the aha moments go beyond tech and security. It's just the way we work virtually more effectively. But I think any organization can take that away. I mean, the how effective we've been virtually brought a lot of aha moments for us. Even in being able to recruit and retain top talent from anywhere has opened a ton of doors for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you also brought together the cybersecurity and the fraud functions within Target. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and the thought process behind it?
Yeah, this has been a really fun journey over the last, probably 18 months or so, maybe a little bit longer. Time has no meaning anymore. But, just as you think of the lines between brick and mortar and online shopping being gone, the same goes for fraud. In fact, right after we merged our capabilities at Target, you saw the Secret Service merge theirs as well. They brought together their what they called electronic crimes unit and their fraud crime unit to create cyber fraud. I think a good indication that that's the direction I think you'll see more and more of us move. And it brings, quite a few benefits. We can apply our cyber capabilities to fraud in a way it's never been done before. So when you think of being Intel based, to arrive at the right detection of bad or anomalous behavior and be able to quickly pivot for detection and response, that gives us a new holistic view of fraud rings and fraud patterns that just weren't available in the old sort of transaction-based view of fraud. And it allows us to then think more effectively about where do we put those speed bumps, those roadblocks, that friction, where it looks like it's bad or anomalous behavior, and where do we reduce those speed bumps or those roadblocks when you can tell it's a good guest. So ultimately, it's positioned us in a way where we can more effectively protect our great guests while making it as easy as possible for them to shop at Target. And we continue to see more and more progress as we've brought the capabilities together. So it's been really fun, and it's been fun to be so guest focused out of the cyber team too.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like you mentioned, the consumer doesn't necessarily draw the same distinction between fraud and a cyber attack of some other nature. It is all about protecting their information. So
yeah,
that's a really interesting point. So, you mentioned, how we all were home for the pandemic. I know that you actually went part-time when your kids were young, and then you returned full-time. I mean, I have to say this speaks to your, ability to balance what many women can sometimes struggle to balance. It also speaks to Target's willingness to be able to do that and support that kind of effort. So can you talk about, the decision process, as we look at the, honoring women in IT security? This is some that I think all women in this industry struggle with. So how did you go about the decision, and how was Target a partner in that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, especially now as we've seen so many women leave the workforce during the pandemic. I think that's a great question. For me, the frame of mind I was in was, my career is going to be here for a long, long time after my kids leave the house, but they're going to leave the house in a blink of an eye. And so how do I get the most out of those moments when they're young, before, they go back to school and maybe they don't need me as much during the day? And so, having that perspective and then working for an organization that truly is people-centric in all of their decisions, positioned me really well to make this work, not just for my family, but make it work for Target. And I will tell you, Target never missed a beat when I requested to be part-time. There was no hesitation from Target. There was no hesitation from my leadership. And then when I was ready to come back full-time, same thing. They never missed a beat. And so because of that, like, I feel so much gratitude and devotion to Target, not just because they've supported my family's needs, but I see that just prevalent throughout our whole culture. And so it makes me grateful personally, but I would say it makes me really grateful professionally, because it allows you to show up as that leader you want to be for your team, especially these last, almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
All of our team members have needed something different from us. They have different personal struggles they might be going through, or different personal needs. And to work at an organization that allows me as a leader to show up for those team members however they need to right now, it's just, it's a culture I could never walk away from. And we've done that. I feel like we've done that time and time again for our team members. Making sure we're making all of our decisions with them at the center has been just extremely rewarding.
And clearly providing an environment where you and others have felt capable of asking. I think a lot of women don't even ask, don't even pursue the option. They don't think that it's out there and available. If you had advice for the women, and perhaps advice for the companies and organizations out there to make this work, what needs to be in place, or what you brought to the table to make it functional for all sides, and vice versa, what would it be?
Yeah, I'd say for the organizations, I think you've got to get there. Everybody's it's proven over the last, like I said, almost 2 years, that everybody just needs more flexibility to have the work-life integration that makes sense for them. I can't even say the word balance because it never feels that way, but whatever that integration is, like, you better get there, because competition for top talent is tough. And so figure out how in your organization you can support that integration. And it's really not that hard. You will find you attract really strong talent that wants to do a great job, and they just want to do it on, the terms that work well for their family. And sometimes that means shorter days or going part-time or whatever it is. But chances are, if you give them that chance, they're going to be extremely loyal and dedicated to the organization, and they'll bring the best version of themselves because they feel that support. So that'd be my advice on the organization side. From the people side, you've got to figure out what your North Star is and just go for it. For me and my family, it has been our family. What is going to work for our family? And nothing is going to scare me off from asking for what we need. In the pandemic, my husband quit his job because we needed somebody to teach the kids. And we were just at a point where it made more sense for him to quit. And now he loves it. He's a stay-at-home dad. So whatever your North Star is, if you have a hobby you're passionate about, or you need to be home for your kids more, or you have a parent that's aging and you want to spend more time with them, know what that is and ask your organization to support you in it. Sometimes that's part-time. Sometimes that's just flexibility. Sometimes that's remote work. But you've got to ask for it, or you'll almost start feeling frustration towards the organization you work for, and that's not a good place to be. Yeah.
Especially because these days, if you look globally, they're doing it too.
Right.
And so it's you're starting to see, no, wait, I know it's possible, because there's organizations around the world that are doing this. So yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I'm clearly passionate about this topic. It's so important. I think it's so important, not just for working moms, but anybody that has, we all have life, whatever that is.
Yep. And I think all of us have been in a position of having to make that decision. So when your employer is kind of in your corner on that, I think it makes a big difference. So that's terrific. Great. Any closing words that are worth adding, or no? What's the next year look like for you?
Oh my gosh, if any of us could have a crystal ball, right? Figure that out. I don't know what tomorrow looks like, let alone the next year. No, I think it is going to be a really exciting year. We're making a lot of great progress in the cyber fraud space, and I'm hoping to continue to partner with other retailers to further bring these capabilities together, like we have on the core cyber side, and keep learning from each other so that we can we can have a bigger impact on some of these I'll call it fraudsters in the fraud and abuse space. I think we've got to come together more there, like we have on the core cyber side. But otherwise, it'll be surviving with the rest of you and figuring out, gosh, will my kids stay in school this whole year, and crossing my fingers for that. And
absolutely. And all of us being able to go on vacations and do things like we used to without.
Oh, that sounds great, Jill. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jody. This was wonderful. And again, congratulations.
Thank you. It was great chatting.
You too.